This is Tyler, your antisocial critic and the host of the AntiSocial Network, your number one source for anachronistic conversations online. Come join us each week to hear opinions from some of the best voices discussing entertainment, politics, religion, and modern life on the internet today, most of which you've never heard of, but I have. Joining us this week on Antisocial Entertainment is Terrace of LateNightGaming. He hosts one of the more interesting Halo lore channels on YouTube. How's it going, man?
Wow, the more interesting lore channels.
Well, I like...
That makes me feel really good, thank you.
I particularly like yours because you go really in-depth on the thematic stuff. And I don't want to pick on Hidden Xperia or any of the other guys who do Halo lore stuff, because they're great, but
those guys have that part of the Halo community locked down. They're all so excellent.
Yeah, what sets you apart is I like the way you try to approach the theme of Halo, and I think there's kind of a more focus on that in your work, so that's kind of sets it apart in my mind. But
yeah, I guess I haven't ever really thought about it that way. Yeah, I guess. And I wouldn't know how to pitch my channel if you asked me to. I just really like Halo.
Oh, I feel that in my heart. I mean, as someone who's written online for about 7 years, but who's made about approximately $600 doing it, I feel the inability to focus that's what kills you. It's what is your elevator pitch? I write.
Yeah. I have a video editing software. Sometimes I use it to make videos.
I have a subscription to Adobe Premiere.
Check it out, my channel.
Yeah, I
love my channel.
Sometimes it just helps to have someone else kind of come in and be like, "Oh, I like you because of this," and then it's like, "Wait, I do that?"
Yeah, it's like, oh, got it. That's what I'm doing.
Well, the trick at that point is to pretend like that was the plan all along.
Yeah, I've got to like put on the air of like, oh yeah, no, I totally meant that.
Oh yeah, just lean back in the chair. Oh, of course, that was the plan.
Of course. I'm glad you noticed.
Anyway, so we're obviously at D-Day +1 of the Halo Infinite reveal, and we haven't really gotten a lot of the solid reactions from the community out quite yet, so I'm kind of curious to see how this is gonna kind of get reacted to, because I watched a couple people's live reactions to it, and I'm seeing every kind of reaction in the book. I'm curious what your gut reaction is so far.
I've been kind of all over the place. I think it's safe to say that the demo was rough technically. But there is a lot of, good stuff there. At first, I felt kind of like, whoa, what am I watching? Because, the frame rate seemed to hitch anytime that, a UI element was brought up. Like that tac map and stuff. There was a lot of, pop-in on the grass. Some of the stuff off in the distance didn't look very great. So it took a little while for me to kind of overcome how rough the game looked. But there's a lot there that I think is really good.
That's a good summary, because I mean, among all of the changes they seem to be making, rough seems to be kind of the rough and the other one reaction is rough, and the other reaction I heard is it's a lot. So rough.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There are a couple random textures in the trailer that I was like, wait, why does that look like that? Especially the final 2-minute soliloquy with the Brute. For whatever reason, when it turns into live action, the Brute's face, it looks really under-textured for some reason. And I mean, obviously the stream was really buffering really badly, so there was tons of clipping, and everything seemed to be kind of just a frame or two off at all times, so it was kind of strange how rough it was. But I guess that was just the stream itself, to at least a degree, because once people started watching the uploaded videos, it didn't seem to be getting as much criticism, but
yeah, the stream did the game no favors. That probably wasn't the best way to show it at a highly compressed 1080p stream with lots of hitching and buffering.
Yeah, and that seemed to kind of get people kind of a negative right off the bat, but I think people are starting to rationalize it slightly in terms of figuring out what the heck it is and what they're going for.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate enough to actually attend a media briefing with the creators, like, after that was all shown off, and they definitely shed a little bit more light on exactly what the game is.
I saw you mention that on YouTube. What was that all about?
Yeah, so basically we were invited, like Paul Crocker and Chris Lee, they were kind of giving everybody the scoop. There were some other content creators in there. And there's a lot to unpack, and it is kind of what has me pretty optimistic. Like, what they have as a foundation is pretty solid, actually. As a Halo game, and also, like, kind of a fresh reboot of the series, or a soft reboot.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
if you want, I can go into specifics.
I kind of do, because let's get an exclusive here.
Okay, what are some of the questions that you have?
Well, for one, how much of the last two games have they just completely left on the cutting room floor? Because it looks like it's more than just a little bit of a soft reboot.
Yeah, so it's not actually, like, pretending that past games didn't happen. What they mean by soft reboot is kind of like a narrative reset, where it's like, okay, way too much is happening right now in the Halo universe. New fans are going to get completely lost. Current fans are already getting lost. We've got to streamline things. And so what they're kind of doing is they're using Combat Evolved as kind of a template. So the idea is this game takes place many years after Halo 5. Humanity is dealing with this robot uprising problem. On the outskirts of the galaxy, you've got this military force, the Banished, that are growing at an alarming rate. It got to the point where they were occupying the Ark. And they've kind of been growing unchecked. And then, prior to the game, Halo Infinite, something happened, whatever it was, a big battle or whatever, and just humanity lost. And right now their forces are scattered. Who knows what happened to the robots, the robot uprising. But the Banished seem to be the ones that made it out of there unscathed. And currently they're just kind of expanding. In the trailer, that war chief, Esheram, mentioned that they're working with something called Harbinger. And whatever their goals are in the ring, Chief stands in the way of.
Did they mention kind of that is the game gonna kind of go into detail on what happened? Because it seems like they're kind of rushing through like the humanity lost 100 days ago thing.
Yeah, they're definitely not gonna like slink away from some things. Obviously, like Halo 5 was Halo 5. That campaign wasn't really well received, to put it lightly. And it's like that still, though, happened canonically in the Halo universe, and that does still need to be addressed. So kind of a lot of the game will kind of be exploring the themes of the Halo franchise, going back and looking back, as well as going forward. So they're not going to pretend things didn't happen. People have already seen kind of a lot of parallels to past Halo games. In fact, somebody specifically on Twitter, his name's Haruspus, he's really good. His articles are really good. He noticed a narrative theme connecting it a little bit to Halo 4, where Halo 4 was a game about dissecting the man inside of the armor and what it means to kind of unshield Chief, strip him down and expose him. And this game seems to be about building him up and exploring what it means for that man to put on the armor. So you've got kind of a theme of deconstruction and then building up.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, it does make sense within the logic of that trilogy. I mean, initially it seemed like it was kind of, the primary focus to me was kind of on Master Chief and Cortana's relationship, and my working theory on Halo 5 was that it was always a metaphor for a toxic relationship where everyone is telling Master Chief, you probably shouldn't go back to your old girlfriend. And Master Chief's like, yeah, I'm going to go back to my old girlfriend. And he meets his old girlfriend. He's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have gone back to my own girlfriend. But
I just think it was a bad story, man.
Oh, I think it's a dopey story, but I'm just sitting here like, what was the guy trying to write? And I'm like, I could see someone like at the structural stage being like, I have this grand idea. I have this great idea. And then they just handed it to a guy who doesn't know how to write it. So obviously it's convoluted. It doesn't, yeah, we don't, no one's disagreeing on Halo 5 was a mess, but I like the fact that they're trying to both soft reboot it and try to deliver it at once. Although I don't feel like I have a sense of how they're doing it yet, because they just haven't given us that much. And especially with as much as they gave us with the trailer, there's so much that they gave us, but there's so many unanswered questions that come along with it.
Yeah, definitely, and it was probably smart for them to do that. I do think a lot of the community is kind of running away with the, oh my god, they're not going to explain anything because the marketing didn't. And it's like, yeah, the marketing isn't going to give away this story. Like, what? Why do you guys think the marketing is going to tell you what happened? That's what the campaign is for.
I just think there's a little bit of blue balling going on. Like, I think people kind of wanted them to, like...
there definitely is that.
I think people just wanted them to, like, drop either the multiplayer beta or the demo on Xbox, like, yesterday, so we can actually, like, have something to work with. So it just feels like...
Yeah, I was surprised that we didn't see any multiplayer footage.
The fact that they played it as a demo on screen, it's the demo. And, like, that's one of those things where you think, like, and guess what, guys? It's on Xbox right now! But they didn't do that.
Yeah. My theory on the play the demo thing is, I assume, so at E3, you have a big guy up on the stage who's holding a controller, and it's like, got it, he's actually playing a thing. But because of working from home and E3 not being a thing this year, I think that was their attempt to try to add some legitimacy to what they were showing off. Like, look, guys, it says demo. We're actually playing this. Trust us. I think that was an attempt to work around the fact that there wasn't a guy on stage at E3.
I guess, but the last thing we want them to do is to be pulling the Halo 2 trailer shenanigans and making them think, oh no, we're 4 months from release and they're making us think it's real. But
oh no, don't worry. The technical issues in that demo makes me 100% believe that was real what we saw.
I mean, I guess they got 2 months or so to clean up a couple of the texture things and the performance issues, so I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think there is?
There's a lot there.
Yeah. What do you think there is to say about the way the story is kind of like cleanly cutting off a lot of the story stuff by destroying the Infinity? I mean, I kind of think we knew that was going to happen at some point, but like the fact that they basically said, yeah, all the stuff we'd been building up on the Infinity, they're all dead now.
Well, yeah, so the way I'm seeing it is, like, after Halo 5, I kind of became disconnected narratively from Halo. Halo had to, like, win me back for a little bit. So stuff like the Infinity, I don't have, like, an emotional connection to. I don't really care. And what I think is kind of clever about this is that they're taking various elements of the Halo universe and they're recontextualizing them in a Combat Evolve-esque setting. So the Infinity is kind of almost being treated like the Pillar of Autumn. You've got this big flagship for humanity, and it has been seemingly destroyed, and all hands on deck are either dead or missing and scattered, as Escharum put it. So I think that that's kind of interesting, that it's like, oh my god, like, we've been reset. Like, we lost the Infinity, and we've got to reorganize and figure out who's dead, who's alive, rally up, and kind of reorganize ourselves if we're going to go back after the Banished for some payback.
I think that definitely helps them from a dramatic storytelling standpoint, because now there's actually a level of threat again. I mean,
yeah.
I never hated the Infinity conceptually, but it definitely did present the narrative problem where suddenly now there's just a giant ship hanging around that can blast any sort of problem they have out of existence. So
yeah,
the fact that...
Yeah, it's reframing it in something that's more palatable to me. The Infinity, I thought, was like a little bit too strong for its own good, and now simply taking it and damaging it or making it weak, I'm like, oh no, I don't want those guys to die.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of some vagary around just how many of them died. Like, a lot.
Oh yeah, and I think that's deliberate.
There are a handful of characters like I don't want dead. Like, I like the captain. I think that he could probably be a good character to keep around.
Lasky.
Sorry?
Captain Lasky?
Yeah. For some reason, his name was
pretty cool.
Yeah, and it felt like they kind of were building him up to do something more, especially with when they made a whole film about him. But I kind of hope they keep him around for a while. But
Well, the thing about like building up and stuff like that is, like, the Reclaimer saga, I think, was kind of a mess looking back on it retrospectively. Like,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of building up around the Halo 4 era, and then after that, you saw a lot of like attempts at course corrections and snap responses to fan feedback, and I do think that's kind of what led to that saga's collapse narratively, is just they were so confident in Halo 4's vision of the universe that the fan response took them by surprise, and, you know, the ship had already set sail. It was kind of too late for them to course correct, and it crashed. And yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see what they could have been trying to build up to, at least, because it seems like that there was going to be like the 3-story arc, and 6 probably would have been like where some of the themes start paying off in some way. But it doesn't. I don't know what they could have been building up to, or for what purpose. So, and the fact that almost no one liked it, that seemed to kind of throw any sort of point of keeping it going out the window.
I'm definitely into, like, obviously Halo 4's version of the Halo universe could have been interesting to explore, but, you know, things happened and we're not getting that, and I hope that this new direction with Halo Infinite is something that is exciting and that is explored. Like, I hope we don't have another Reclaimer saga situation here with Infinite.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Because I think what they're building up is interesting.
What is their goal from a campaign standpoint? Is it trying to make this into like a Destiny Light kind of game, or is this going to be just like a more open version of a Halo game? Because it kind of seems to have a little bit more of its hand in Destiny territory.
So, talking to Paul Crocker and Chris Lee, they never said that the game was full-on open world, but they did describe open environments. And there was a lot of allusions to past Halo games. You've got levels kind of like the Silent Cartographer, which are these just massive non-linear levels where you can attack objectives in any way you choose. And so it at least seems, even looking at that TAC map, I was reminded less of Destiny and more of the second level of Halo, where you're in that gigantic valley, and there's 3 different sets of Marines you have to rescue, and you can tackle them in any way. It's like, just go, here's a warthog.
Yeah, I got that vibe too, but I'm getting mixed senses as to how big the game is, because some people are saying like, oh, it might be mostly open world or somewhat, because I thought, like, there's no way you could be able to, like, explore the entire Halo, especially the one Halo that's supposed to be the largest Halo. Like, there's no way you could do that without some sort of, like, what's it called? The, like, No Man's Sky rendering, where you just, like, have it...
voxels.
Yeah, it just renders itself, and you just kind of explore as much as you want, except for, like, the few distinct areas. Like, I don't think you could do something like that unless you had a technology like that, and that doesn't seem like the direction they would go.
We're not gonna explore an entire Halo ring. I doubt that. I mean, I don't know. They could pull anything out last minute, but yeah, I'm anticipating we're probably gonna explore close to the epicenter of whatever damaged the ring.
I would be kind of fascinated with like a Halo game that kind of functions like Elder Scrolls 2, where you have like you have a Halo ring, and it's like it has the entire Halo ring is like 10,000 times the surface of the Earth, and you can go anywhere on it. That'd be kind of, I mean, I doubt that would ever happen, but that would be kind of fascinating if nothing else. But
I was kind of interested in the wildlife. It was like, some of it looked kind of scripted, which was kind of neat, like the idea of placing birds in bushes. That way, if you drive a warthog past a bush, you'll like scare a bunch of birds and they'll fly off, or having those like little squirrel things that were like running around. That's cool. I've never really seen that in a Halo game outside of Reach.
Yeah.
With the MOAs running around.
I like that. It makes it feel a lot more lived in.
Yeah, it seems more like an actual place full of wildlife rather than kind of a really pretty level set in an outdoor environment.
Yeah, I mean, in the original lore, I think it was in Glasslands, they more or less say that there's no life on any of the Forerunner constructs. So I guess at one point they were kind of sticking close to the game aesthetic, but I think I like it having it life on them more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, thinking about that doesn't make a lot of sense, because there are birds chirping in the stock sound effects for, like, the background audio in Combat Evolved. In the second level, if you listen to the map ambience, you can hear birds chirping.
I just remember some random exigent line of dialogue from Halo Glasslands where they're like, "Oh, we're trapped inside the ring world. All we can find to eat are lizards. There's no other life." But yeah, it makes more sense if there's life on them in some sense.
Yeah,
I mean, there's the birds in Halo 2, but
yeah, like there's got to be an ecosystem to like keep some of those plants in check. Like you've got to have like that wildlife that's kind of living off the land. It can't just be all shrubbery.
Oh yeah. So what else is there from the trailer that we haven't talked about? I mean, we talked. Have you talked about the art aesthetic at all?
The art aesthetic I'm very happy with like 1,000 asterisks. Yeah, there definitely is something up with the lighting, and it's not doing those models justice. If you take the footage, even if you're at a 1080p display, run it at 4K at like half speed, and there is a lot of detail in each individual model, asset, gun, and stuff, but for some reason, that lighting isn't bringing out any of the detail. You only start to see some of those specular scratches and scuffs on the weapons whenever Chief is in direct sunlight.
Yeah.
Second he steps into shadow, it's like boom, suddenly everything looks like clay.
I mean, the way it looks in the trailer, everything is so saturated that a lot of the detail kind of feels a bit washed out, just looking at it at a glance. It's weird because this game is being bragged about as, like, the most expensive game ever developed or something. Like, I don't know how much they've spent on it, but they rebuilt a whole new engine from scratch. They spent, 5 years between the development of the engine and the game itself, making this brand new game. And the first time we see it, it has these weird texture issues. I mean, color-wise, I like it. It reminds me a lot of the Halo Anniversary Edition, where everything is just so poppy and stylized, and everything looks so purposefully unrealistic, but it makes it so much more distinct than everything else I like around it in the industry. It's more Halo than Halo, but yeah, the way it's rendered is weird.
To be fair, the like most expensive game ever made, nobody from 343 has ever said that. That was a rumor that people took at face value. So we don't know the price of the game. And I do not believe that rumor that this game had like a $500 million budget, and I wish people would stop circulating that as fact.
Okay, I rescind the point. I am nothing if not a cheap purveyor of rumor, but
as far as like the engine rebuilding, so the Slipspace engine seems, at least just looking at it, looking at the way like the physics work, the way that it's drawing things in, it looks like the Halo engine. And rebuilding the engine from scratch probably also means that a lot of tools that used to exist no longer exist, and they have to build them new. Like, so, with that Bungie engine that 343 inherited, Halo 4 was kind of like notoriously difficult for them to make because that engine has all sorts of weird Band-Aid duct tape solutions to things under the hood. It's a very hard engine just because of how bizarre Bungie coded it. The equivalent, I guess, to it would be kind of like if you're in a messy room, but it's your messy room. And so people are like, where are your socks? And you're like, oh, I know where they are. They're in that corner of the room over there. Like, somebody new isn't going to be able to find anything. But because it's your mess, you know where everything is. That's kind of the problem that Bungie's engine was. And so it seems like with the Slipspace engine, 343 has kind of dismantled every bit of the code, and they're systemically rebuilding it and documenting it so that going forward, they know where everything is in the code and what everything does.
That makes sense. Is their goal to ramp up the production of the games going forward if this goes well? Like, what do you think?
So they talked a little bit about what Halo Infinite is. And basically, it's kind of like you think of Halo Infinite as the platform for Halo going forward. So future experiences will take place in Infinite.
Okay, so
it's kind of like the same way that CS:GO didn't get a CS:GO 2.
So, so this is kind of a Destiny 2 situation where they're going to be like adding campaign stuff going forward.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, stuff like that. They did talk about stories, like, which had me kind of interested because it was like, whoa, campaign DLC.
I mean, I'm all about that. I mean, it's going to be curious to see how that works, though, because if they do that, that means everything either needs to take place on the Halo, or they're going to have to release, like, 50 gigabyte updates where they release, like, oh, here's the one where you go to Earth. Here's the one where you go to St. Helios. I can imagine that becoming a mess really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Destiny currently right now is actually struggling with that, where the game is currently too large, and they're actually removing content to free up space and untangle some of the code so that it makes, like, their development easier.
Oh my gosh, that's...
Which, to be fair, I am completely okay with, because there's a lot of bad stuff in Destiny 2, and they seem to be removing the bad stuff and keeping all of the good stuff. So I'm like, yes, cut the fat.
I mean, I haven't played Destiny since Taken King. Every time I'm told, oh, you should jump back in, like 3 months later, I'm told, don't jump back in. It just seems to be kind of, it goes back and forth so frequently. I'm like, I have no freaking...
Destiny 2 is very good. The reason I could say you could jump back into it is because they've made those awful linear campaigns completely optional. You can create your Guardian, play the tutorial level, and immediately get into Strike's Crucible and stuff.
I mean, you did that video a couple days ago where you're like, oh, the new lore from Destiny. I mean, I'm just sitting here like... I play games for stories, and the fact that 100% of the story in Destiny is just dedicated to the lore, or even just things that just happen, or that whatever people call the lore, is just sitting here like, oh my gosh, this game is...
Destiny's story, I actually think, is really cool, just because basically... The way Bungie seems to be telling their story in Destiny is like, imagine if Halo 3 terminals were expanded to an entire game. So you have this loose context of why you're doing some things like strikes or these exotic missions. But if you go off the beaten path, you're going to discover cryptic things, and you're going to go to the Bungie forums, and you're going to find people dissecting it, and what does it mean? And it has some pretty cool, like, ramifications.
Okay, I could see that, but that's...
It's like a massive community-wide Easter egg hunt, and that's what I think is really compelling about it. I think that there's, like, a community with how Bungie is telling their story in Destiny. It makes it seem like forbidden knowledge that only you know.
I could see that being conceptually interesting, but jumping into that now feels like jumping into World of Warcraft, like the non-classic version today. It's just being like, there's so much stuff!
Basically, the way I pitch Destiny's story is go to Destinypedia, which is basically the Destiny wiki. Start with the Traveler, which we all know what the Traveler is. It's a giant ball, and it gave people superpowers. So, like, read a little bit of that, and if you see something that is interesting to you, you click on that, and you read about it, and you just... Yeah, start with what you think is interesting and you want context on. If you want to know what the Hive are, read about the Hive's history on your own time.
Okay. Anyway, we're off the beaten track of Halo by about a mile.
Halo. Actually, talking about Destiny and Halo and art styles, something about the Halo art style in Infinite that I think could actually help them quite a bit is Bungie really likes that minimalist style, where Destiny 2 I wouldn't say is a great looking game graphically. I think it looks kind of like a beefed up Halo Reach in terms of its like technical accomplishments. But Bungie is very good with implication of detail. So, like, if there's a metal surface with, like, a couple of scuffs, in Destiny, they'll make it very scuffed, and it'll kind of, like, comically reflect light off of it, and it'll look very over the top. And I do think 343, they're going for that kind of Bungie minimalist aesthetic, but what they're missing is the detail on like the armors and stuff, they're still trying to have a bit of realism to it, but those simplistic designs don't translate well into real life. You need to go all out. Like, that brute armor needs to look comically scuffed up. You know, the paint needs to look really crappy and spread on. It can't look like something that was methodically paced, or else it looks like a toy.
Yeah, I said, I remember, I was talking to someone else, I said the game looks like it's a weird synthesis of modern Halo and classic Halo, where you're getting kind of the best and worst of both worlds at the same time within this art style. Like, it's like you said, it looks like a toy. Like, there's something, like, I like the way it looks, but unless there's some...
I love all the designs. It's just those realistic design, or those toy-like stylized, simplistic designs in something that kinda looks like real life. It's like, it doesn't work quite that well. You have to exaggerate things.
It's got that pasty look of like a Godzilla film where everything's just a little too off, but you invest in it because it's corny. But so
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things that it'll play differently than it looks. And that's kind of why I want to play the demo, and I think they should have released something yesterday that people could actually get their hands on, just because I think that would have kind of alleviated some of the anxiety people are feeling, like, we're 4 months from release, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, from what I gathered, seeing the footage and then hearing them, talking about some of the stuff like exploration, finding things off the beaten path in some of the levels, the gameplay, because there's no squad system, it seems a lot more focused on, like, the individual player's personal experience. Like, the squad system in Halo 5 kind of, it did not encourage exploration, because you've got 3 guys glued to your hip who are following you around. All the enemies are hitting really hard because there's 4 of you at any given time. So getting rid of all that and just having the Master Chief there, you can control a little bit of what's going on. You can play at your own pace. And I saw that in the gameplay demo. It was kind of exciting. There's a bit more of that Halo golden triangle going on. I saw lots of melee attacks. I saw lots of grenades used.
Yeah. Do you think the advanced mobility is going to affect that at all? I mean, I know that's a sore spot for the community.
So the enhanced mobility and stuff is... So Halo Infinite looks like an enhanced mobility shooter again. I saw clamber, I saw sliding and stuff. I did not see thrusting, which is good. But I'm at peace with that. I prefer classic Halo, but it's not going to completely ruin the experience if this game is another enhanced mobility shooter. I'm glad that they seem to be optimizing the spaces better. Things are a lot less cramped. There's a lot more open, just gigantic, play spaces. And the enemies seem to not hit at quite such a long range, so there is more room to have kind of like that classic, just running up to enemies and kind of circle strafing around them.
How do we feel about the grappling hook?
The grappling hook, I definitely am a bit concerned about, because they have clarified, thankfully, that in multiplayer it will be an equipment pickup, a la Halo 3. In the campaign, though, it seemed as if it was regenerating, and if that is the case, then that could be problematic to just give the player an ignore the level design button whenever they want. That's the problem that Halo 5 had. Like, yeah, of course the levels felt very linear and boring. I was ignoring them. I was flying and climbing over everything.
Yeah, I mean, in general, one of my bigger complaints with 343 is that they spend way too much time capitulating to modern shooter norms. Halo feels less like Halo when you're integrating aspects of Titanfall and Call of Duty into it. And the fact that they're bringing a grappling hook into it feels like it's one of those, like, it could be a cool idea, but it also feels like the ultimate concession to modern gameplay design. Like, I having read every single, like, most of the Halo books, and, like, this seems like an anathema to how how they've written it, but I'm open to it. It's so strange.
Yeah, it's definitely like a strange addition, but also Halo has seen stranger things in the past.
Yeah.
We've got like armor lock where you're like, what? Like, where was this in Combat Evolved? That seems like a thing Chief could have used.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay. It's a video game. The video games are going to introduce new concepts and things. Like, Halo's never cared about how its gameplay matters in a narrative context.
Well, the 343 games have purported to care because they try to do the brand integration, but it's made everything a complete train wreck of a mess. So, well, I guess in a way that's kind of smart. I don't know.
I'm happy that they seem to be focusing a little bit on external factors, because that was very much the problem with Halo 5, is past Halo games, when they made innovations, like in Halo 2, they innovated the vehicles. There are now new ways to interact with vehicles through boarding them. The weapons, there's now new ways to interact with them by picking up 2 at the same time. And then when you got to the 343 games, it was personal innovation to, like, look, the player can now sprint, the player can now aim down the sights, the player can now climb on it's not innovations in the external sandbox. Most of that was kind of exactly the same.
Yeah.
And, it's cool that in Infinite there are innovations to external factors. The elites have like new animations and new behaviors that I've never seen before. The brutes are awesome. They can like throw grunts at you.
Yeah, we need
like that stuff's cool.
I think we need to have a discussion about the greatest feature of the game, which is the flying grunt.
The kamikaze grunt. Yeah, that was just like, what is that in the air? Oh my god, that's a grunt.
I still don't think there's have people figured out what made him fly? Was that a brute throwing him, or was he just...
It was a brute that just threw him. Yeah, at some point in the trailer, like at first you're kind of like, what was that? What launched that grunt? And a little bit into the trailer, like 10 or so seconds later, you see a brute try it again. He grabs a nearby grunt and just throws him at Chief.
Oh my gosh!
It's pretty cool.
They've made the greatest game ever made. I don't care.
Yeah, the brutes are really cool in Halo Infinite so far. I like a lot of what they're doing.
Yeah, what is the... Is there a lore logic to the fact that the elites are with the brutes? I mean, were there elites with the brutes in Halo Wars 2?
Yeah, the way that the Banished operate is, so the Covenant was like religious dogma, these prophets that lie to them and keep them in line through lies and manipulation and promises of an afterlife. And with the Banished, there is none of that. Like, the Banished are all brothers, they all love and work together with each other. Like, the Banished look out for themselves, so they kind of just make their way across the galaxy collecting ex-Covenant members, insurrectionists, militia, various spin-off factions, and it's just like, hey, like, everything sucks, right? You guys should stick with us. We look out for each other. So there's mutual respect between all the members of the Banished.
Did 343 talk about their motivations for wanting to go after humanity? Because it sounds like the Banished don't really have a ideological reason to go after the UNSC. At least not from the trailers.
Oh, no. They were very tight-lipped about what their motivations are, and I mean, we're gonna figure that out in the game. Didn't they say... What was it? I know that Escherum said that the Banished are working with a Harbinger to get something. What was the word? Whatever the thing is?
I forget. I mean, I'm just
they
going
had
off...
some goal on the ring. I forgot what it was, but... Yeah, the Banished are doing something on the ring. There's something they want there.
How much do you think that's going to tie into the deep lore? Like, because I know that
probably
installation...
not at all.
I figured as much. I mean, obviously, anyone who's read the books knows Installation 07 is where all the composer stuff happened and a lot of the most insane Forerunner experiments and stuff. And I doubt... Yeah, like I said, it's probably not going to play into the plot, but I'm...
Yeah. That stuff is the history of the ring. What we're going after, I guess, probably, like, if I were to write the story and I was under the pretense that we're not going to try to, like, bog down the player with Lord of the Rings scale novels, like, in order to figure out what's going on, I'd imagine that what we're going to go after is something that wasn't really explored in any of the books, maybe mentioned, but never actually explored in depth. That way it can be fleshed out in a game setting. I don't think we're going to be going after, like, the Palace of Pain and stuff like that, because all of that is too specific to those Forerunner books.
Yeah, it's like, hey, did you not read the Halo equivalent of the Silmarillion? Then I guess what?
We're not going to be going, like, after that stuff is way too deep in Halo lore.
I only read the first of those 3 books because they're just so impenetrable, but they're so dense, but...
I definitely hope they're not just gonna, like, try to fire a Halo ring, and that's, like, the thing we gotta stop.
That would be so...
It would be boring.
Yeah, like, what the heck would the Banished want to do firing the Halo array? That seems kind of pointless, especially if they don't have the Covenant religion. Like, yeah, we don't believe that we're going on the Great Journey if we fire the Halo rings. Fire them anyway! Like...
Yeah, we'll have to see what it is that the Banished are actually doing. I hope it's not that.
Ugh. Do you think there's going to be any chance the Flood shows up?
So in my personal opinion, no. I think that the Flood are kind of endgame stuff. And I mean, obviously the Flood were introduced in the very first Halo game, but Bungie told that story as if it was the final Halo game. So if you look at the trilogy as a whole, you're introduced to the concept of the Flood, the Covenant, and you get the sense that if this conflict doesn't play out well, everyone's gonna be dead. And, the end of Halo 3, they finished the fight. Like, the Flood had been contained, the Covenant is just shattered. And so, bringing back the Flood casually would seem kind of like we're doing this again.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be an easy way to take them out either.
If the Flood are to return, they need to be like the Thanos level thing. Like, this is it, guys. This is the end game. The Flood are back.
I'd kind of be interested to see, like, a spin-off game where you have to deal with, like, a localized Flood infestation. That
could be cool.
Because supposedly within the deep lore, there are, like, Spartan 4s that their job is just to find areas where the Flood exists and keep them contained. So, I'm sure they still, like, they're still floating around the edge of the canon. The Installation 04 is still littered with them.
Yeah.
So it could be interesting if they tried, but...
Yeah.
What else is there from the trailer that you thought?
So I really liked the music a lot. Like, the music was really good. I liked the art style, if not the actual graphics. Yeah, and the gameplay seems snappier than I was expecting. I was expecting something more like Halo 5, where you've got, like, an assault rifle and you're aiming down the sights and, like, getting headshots from a long distance. I was surprised at how close-up, visceral, and snappy everything was. I was pretty surprised by, like, the new behaviors of the enemies and stuff, and the size of the environment.
Did they say anything about the weapons availability? Because it seems like the weapons have been almost completely rewritten from the ground up. I assume most of the weapons are gonna... The classic weapons are gonna return, but are they just bringing in, like, dozens of new ones, too?
Well, it's kind of interesting. If you slow down the footage, it almost... I don't know. If you slow down the footage, there was something about, like, one of the weapons. I forgot what it was called. It was like that gun that looked like it was from Titanfall 2. It had the little hollow sight on it. It looked like it said kinetic, almost like a damage type, and then there was that carbine thing, the burst carbine that he picks up, and that thing had plasma. So it's almost like they're separating weapons into different categories and departments based on, like, the projectile they shoot.
I mean, there is an upgrading tab in the... If you look at the menu screen, like, there's
people did see that.
I'm curious if that's just for Master Chief's, like, mobility, or if that's going to be something that corresponds to the weapon pickups or something. It's not clear what they're actually going to do with that.
Yeah, like, being able to kind of, like, modify the weapons. Yeah, it's weird. I don't think I've ever seen a Halo game done like this.
I mean, I don't know how you do that, though, because Halo is so, like, pick up and go with its weapons. It's, oh, your assault rifle's out of ammo. Pick up a plasma rifle. Oh, you're out of ammo. pick up a needler. The game's constantly encouraging you to swap weapons constantly. It doesn't want you to go through the game with the same 2 weapons, except for maybe like the first game. But.
Somebody described Halo's combat kind of like it's the equivalent of like picking up tomatoes or fruits off the floor and throwing them at people. Like, you've got to find the right and the smelliest and the stinkiest fruit to throw at the person you don't like. Where Destiny and Doom are more like sewing kits, where you're personally sewing the perfect costume for yourself. Like, there's nothing external going on. So or internal, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's no weapons pickups in Doom.
Yeah, it's the fruit on the floor that you're picking up, you're trying to find the best one to throw at the guy versus making yourself like a personal costume with the sewing kit. Like Halo has always been more about find the right tomato, the stinkiest and the most rotten.
Yeah, I think the new weapons kind of threw people for a loop too, because everyone's like, wait, where's all the classic stuff? Like, where's the battle rifle? Where's everything that's familiar? Like, it throws so much.
The battle rifle was there.
Huh?
The battle rifle was there. It was in a different trailer.
Okay, I thought there was a second 1 minute trailer that there was. I'll have to look at it more clearly, but I'm sure all
looks really dope in it.
Oh man, I'm sure all the classic stuff is there, and that they just kind of filled out the weapons just for the heck of it. Because now I was like, oh, we got a. Do you think the robot or the Cortana's Forerunner faction is going to have any appearance in the game at all?
I have no clue. I don't know, man.
Well, you know more than I do, but I'm curious if they can make sense or not, because it seems like...
Well, I don't know much. I basically, that whole meeting was more of a clarification of things that were shown off, more than here's hidden knowledge. We haven't seen anything Forerunner related. We haven't even seen Sentinels. We've only seen something that could have been a Sentinel in that 2018 engine demo.
Yeah.
Underwater?
Oh yeah, that was weird. Jeez, there's so much they haven't shown us yet. It's insane.
Yeah, and it's a little bit close to launch, which is concerning.
Well, I mean, if COVID hadn't happened, obviously we would have seen all this a month earlier, so it's not like this is... This is like we have to have something out, and we lost a month of development time, so here it is a month late.
And everybody's working from home.
Yeah, that's got to be rough, especially at this point in development.
Could you imagine how long it would take if you were like a modeler or something, or maybe a texture artist, and you're making these complex models, and since you're working from home, you can't just hand it off to the guy who's working in the cubicle next to you. You have to upload it to some kind of server or something, which will take time because of the size of the asset you're working on, and then someone else needs to download it and take a look at. Yeah, I'd imagine that it's very inconvenient working from home. My half gigabyte Windows 7 laptop from 2007 with half a gigabyte of RAM is rendering. It's gonna take a few years. Yeah, oh my god, I don't envy those guys. I don't envy any developer currently in the industry.
Well, yeah, because I mean, especially right now when they're like, you have to get this out by November, and
yeah.
They're still playing coy with a lot of details about the launch, too, and that kind of frustrated me. I was hoping we'd get more practical knowledge, too. This comes out this date, the consoles comes out on this date, it's going to be this much, and they said they're going to do some more multiplayer stuff within the month, which is comforting to hear that, but still, it feels like it's really close, and we don't know a lot of things we should know at this point. There's not even a pre-order available as far as I'm aware.
I think it's not available for pre-order yet. I think it's just the official box art now is up there along with promotional screenshots. Yeah,
but you know what's going to happen? The day that the Xbox finally does pre-order, they're all going to sell out in a minute, and then no one's going to get to play it except for the people that pre-ordered all of the 50,000 that they Xbox Series X they launch on day one, and then everyone's gonna end up just buying it for the Xbox One because that's all they're gonna be able to buy.
Yeah. Also, man, if the game's launching on the Xbox One, I can't imagine how much that must be holding back some of the tech.
Oh gosh, I mean. At this point, I don't think I'm even going to be able to get an Xbox One within the first year because I'm I have no desire whatsoever to get involved in the day one rush to get my Xbox One or Xbox Series X. That sounds like it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, I like, my PC's good. I don't need my Xbox One X is fine. I don't need the Series X for a while.
Well, especially since the only game that's going to be out is Halo for a while.
Well, the Xbox Series X will have universal backwards compatibility with the Xbox One and 360 and original titles.
Which, that's cool. I mean...
So it's like you're carrying your library forward. You're not actually losing anything.
Well, except for the memories, or the memory, the game files, but... It's all
you'll have to re-download all of that, but...
All my save data from my original Xbox! It's useless!
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, do you have any other thoughts on the, on Halo Infinite, or you just kind of want to call for now?
No. I want to know more. I want to see more. That tech demo, the technical issues with it were quite distracting, and I hope that Halo Infinite gets, like, a second shot at showing itself off, hopefully in a better light.
Yeah, I mean, they did allude to the multiplayer demo coming out, or the multiplayer footage coming out later, sometime in August, so I imagine that's probably when we're going to start getting more actual footage of it, but...
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, like, how a lot of those equipment play in the multiplayer setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little disconcerting just how much they're adding, but we'll see. I do hope they cut a lot of that back for the actual multiplayer, though, otherwise this could turn into a cluster really fast.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Have to see.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you want to plug your stuff real quick, or?
You should really check out my channel. It's pretty good. I make Halo videos. Also follow me on Twitter. Okay.
Subscribe, like, subscribe, and do the thing that they
do. Like, subscribe, smash the smash, and see you next time.
I'm sure there's a direct proportional statistic between being a complete sellout on YouTube and being incredibly successful. So who knows?
Yeah, like. I gotta read off the standard list of things that YouTubers say.
Anyway, have a good afternoon, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too, man.
The AntiSocial Network is a Groupthink Productions podcast. Editing, producing, and hosting are by Tyler Hummel, artwork by Crystal Cowley, and original music was composed by Melissa Lafira and the late Dan Smolla. Like, subscribe, and please let us know what you think about the show in the comments below if you'd like to see anyone interesting be a guest on the show. Thank you for listening.